Game Pass on the PS5, I gotta say, I'm into it. Nobody's going to argue that coming into this generation, Xbox was fighting an uphill battle. We all know the story about how during the Xbox 360 generation, they were on top of the game for the vast majority of it. Like the better part of a decade, the Xbox 360 was outselling the PS3 hand over fist. And then magically, they lost all of that goodwill when they released the Xbox One. And man, I remember going into Target, Best Buy, GameStop, and seeing tons of Xbox Ones on the shelf, and you could just not find a PS4 anywhere for a few months. It was crazy. But while Sony has been building out their market dominance by releasing some truly awesome first and second party games over the past few years, Xbox has been taking a slightly different approach with its Game Pass service. Basically, for $15 a month, you get Xbox Live Gold, every single past and future Xbox exclusive game, which is crazy, and you also get about like 1 million third-party games. I know it's not that high, that was a joke, but there is just an insane amount of content on Game Pass that you can just download the game and get playing while you're a subscriber. And the crazier thing is that when a game leaves Game Pass or DLC is added while a game is on the service, there's usually a discount. So I play a ton of Destiny 2, and if you buy the season pass on one console or PC, it transfers between all of the different devices. I buy it on Xbox because you get a 10% discount on Silver. It's a great service, I love it. You also have access to another library of games on PC, you have EA Play included with the service, and if you have an Android phone, you can stream games from the cloud, and all of your saves from your Xbox will be playable there. Not a huge fan of game streaming, I'm gonna be honest, but they just added some Xbox 360 titles like Oblivion, and the idea of playing that on my phone is absolutely crazy. And now that I think of it, they actually do get some pretty big third-party games as well, like Outriders, which is my favorite thing I'm playing right now, and then I just remembered this. Sony's MLB The Show 21 is coming to Game Pass this year while it's $70 on the PS5. So a first-party developed Sony game is going to be easier and cheaper to play on Xbox than a PS5. Like, isn't that absolutely insane? The point is that Game Pass is irrefutably a great service, and everyone's just kind of been sitting on the sideline watching Sony saying, hey, what are you guys gonna do about that? And before you head down to the comments to say it, I know they have PS Now, which is a service that lets you download a small selection of PS4 games every month, and you can also stream PS3 games. But it's not as good, it's not the same, no one really wants to be streaming PS3 games. There's also no PS5 games on PS Now, and when they add stuff like Avengers, which has a free PS5 upgrade if you bought it on PS4, when you download it on PS Now, that is not an option. You just get the PS4 game, so if you play it on the PS5, it's probably just running in the PS4 Pro mode. It's hardly ideal if you ask me. And as far as games with gold goes, Sony has them beat every single month. We get stuff like Days Gone, Oddworld Soulstorm, Maneater, and on the Xbox side, I think the only game I've actually ever downloaded with games with gold is Resident Evil Remake, which I own on pretty much every other device. The difference is though with PlayStation Plus that if you miss the window to add those games to your library, you miss them forever. If you miss that month, you're not gonna get Days Gone. If you miss the month where it's available, you're not gonna get Maneater. So it's not a good competitor in any way to Game Pass. There's also an argument I see a lot, which honestly I kind of agree with, which is that Sony doesn't need a Game Pass competitor because people will pay $70 for their games because they're just that good. I remember last generation I had a PS4 Pro and an Xbox One X, and I would play pretty much all my third-party stuff on the Xbox One X, but man, every time a Sony game came out, I was the first in line at the local game shop to get it because I just knew that they had a pedigree, they set an expectation that their games are going to be amazing, and they rarely, if ever, don't meet that expectation. But with Microsoft buying up so many different third-party games to end up on Game Pass, like Outriders, which is really the first big next-gen game we've gotten so far, I feel like Sony needs to have some kind of offering. And you also got to consider that Xbox has been buying up third-party studios for a long time now, and they've actually got some pretty good stuff coming down the pipe, like State of Decay 3, Hellblade 2, Avowed, Fable, Halo Infinite. The list goes on and on of all of these Xbox exclusives that have been announced, and yeah, we don't know if those are going to be anywhere near as good as a Sony game, and honestly, I don't think Xbox has earned the benefit of the doubt for us to assume they will be, but there's just such an insane amount of stuff coming to Game Pass that I feel like Sony, again, has to do something. And even crazier is the fact that Sony's been in the news a lot lately because they're apparently doubling down hard on AAA experiences that are big blockbusters. So even if they did want to have a Game Pass, it's not like they'd actually have a ton of games available for it. Honestly, I think most of Sony's best first-party games right now, especially from the PS4 generation, are available on the PS Plus collection. So that's basically as good as it's gonna get if they have a Game Pass competitor. But that's why this report from God of War creator David Jaffe's live stream is so interesting. He says he does not know exactly what their competitor service will be, but he's positive that they're working on one and that we're probably going to hear an announcement about it soon. And then after that report, everyone was kind of watching Sony, waiting for some news to come out, and then another commentator named Special Ed said on his Xbox Era podcast that he knows what the service is going to be. And it sounds kind of crazy. It's not going to be a direct one-to-one ripoff of Game Pass. It's actually going to be more like what Apple does or Disney Plus does. It's going to be a bundle where you have PS Now, PS Plus, and Funimation's anime service at a low monthly cost. It's going to be bundled together so all that stuff is cheaper. Now, beyond the big positive that this won't devalue their games and they'll still be able to sell them at $70, I gotta say, I don't really think this is a great idea. Don't get me wrong, it's cool that they're going to give people an option to get Funimation and PS Now at a cheaper price, but like that's not the issue with those services for me. It's not the price, it's the fact that I don't watch anime and I don't stream games, so why would I even want those services to begin with? But the more I think about it, unfortunately, it just seems like Sony doesn't have any other option. So while Microsoft was running around the industry writing blank checks to big studios that they're buying up, I was wondering what Sony was doing, and it honestly seems like they weren't doing much of anything, which is absolutely insane to me. And that, combined with the fact that they've doubled down so hard on AAA experiences, mean that they're just in a weird spot where all they have to rely on is their $70 first-party games. And it gets even more insane when you consider that while Microsoft was making these big moves and expanding outward, Sony was doing the exact opposite and shutting studios down and ending relationships. They ended their relationship with Quantic Dream, who made Detroit Become Human, which a lot of people loved. They shut down the studio that made Wipeout, which was crazy to me. They got rid of Evolution, who made Drive Club after just one mistake. They shut down Zipper Interactive, who made all the SOCOM games. They've shut down so many different studios, it's crazy, and I know I'm forgetting some. I just don't get it. And I already mentioned this, but they reshuffled everything at Japan Studio, which made them lose a ton of key talent. And on the topic of losing key talent, we have to talk about what happened at Bend Studio. So when the game came out and was profitable and basically became a cult hit, Bend went to Sony and said, hey, we'd really like to make a sequel to this because people like it. And Sony said no because some snobby critics gave it 6 out of 10. And then just to twist the knife a little bit more, Sony split the studio in two, and they put half the team on The Last of Us 2's multiplayer and the other half of the team on a new Uncharted game. So they made a brand new IP for Sony that sold enough copies to become profitable, and they're rewarded by becoming a support studio for Naughty Dog. So naturally, a lot of key talent, like people who have been there since the beginning and worked on PS1 games like Siphon Filter, which were awesome, left the studio, and they're just gone. And after those people left, Sony let the two teams reform back into one studio, and now they're working on a new IP instead of Days Gone 2. You'd think they would have let them do that before they lost two of the biggest people at the studio. It's mind-blowing. And this crappy response to Game Pass is going to get even better when you learn that the big AAA blockbusters that Sony work on include a remake of the first Last of Us game. That game came out 7 years ago, was remade for PS4, and runs on PS5 at 4K 60 resolution. I can go through Sony's massive backlog and pick a million games that need a remake before The Last of Us. How about the Resistance series, which you just let completely die, or the Infamous series, which made it to PS4? They have so many dormant series right now, like Jak and Daxter, for example, that they could be making awesome new games with, but no, they want to remake The Last of Us. I just don't get the logic there. Sony's in a weird spot right now because they're acting so confident because they're on top, but I think they're totally misreading the tea leaves on how big of an advantage they have over Microsoft and the Xbox brand. People proved during the Xbox 360 generation that they're totally happy to jump ship and buy another console if it suits them better, and that's exactly what's happening here. I don't understand how Sony has already forgotten how bad the beginning of that generation was when they put out a $600 console with an SD card reader and no storage space and no good first-party games. It's exactly what's happening right now with the PS5, and they're just acting like it never happened before, which is crazy to me. What I will say though is that the last time this happened to Sony, it actually worked out for gamers because they made some of the best first-party content they've ever put out, but the big difference is now they don't have nearly as many studios as they did in the middle of the PS3 generation. Obviously, this is all in the future and it could all totally work out, but we gotta make sure we pay attention when stuff like this happens, because that's how we get screwed over. You know, like when Xbox announced they were raising the price of Xbox Live Gold, the backlash was so great that they changed their minds and actually made Xbox Live Gold better the next day. Sony doesn't really do that as much. They need to have some really bad stuff happen before they turn around and do good things, but the more we hammer them on dumb stuff like this Game Pass competitor, which doesn't sound that good, the more they're going to have to listen. Anyway guys, I'd love to hear what you think of all of this down in the comments below, and remember to stay PS ready by subscribing and hitting the notification bell. As always, my name name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.